This is Keke. Hi, y'all. Keke here. And baby, we have a lot to discuss today, okay? Because I might be biased. I grew up in the 90s, but there was something special about the shows of that time. Not only were they entertaining, but some of them were so ahead of their time with what they uncovered that it just feels like, I don't know, they don't make them like they used to. Rugrats, The Proud Family, Hey Arnold, Daria, teens are kids too. Ooh, we are about to take a walk down memory lane. Today, I'll be talking to Craig Bartlett, who has worked on such projects such as Hey Arnold, The Rugrats, and Johnny Bravo. But first, let's chat with Miss Sharon Palmer and Max and get their hot takes. Here we go. Okay, guys, there's nothing like 90s TV. Okay, I don't know if it's the nostalgia or what, but those shows we grew up on definitely have a special place in my heart. And I want to know, what's your favorite kid show from the 90s? Sharon, I know you weren't a kid, but you watched some of those shows with us. So what was some of your favorite shows that you watched us get into? And Max, same for you.
Wow. Well, I know you guys were crazy about obviously Raven. You also watched
90s, the
Ni-
cartoons.
cartoons.
Raven's 2000s. So like
Oh.
cartoons would be like
Oh,
Arthur.
okay. Got it.
It would be, Dragon Tales,
Oh, okay.
Rugrats,
Not the Dragon
Hey
Tales.
Well,
Arnold,
okay.
Doug.
Well,
Oh,
I have to
Doug.
be very honest. You weren't really a cartoon baby. I couldn't get you to watch any cartoons. Maybe you did watch a little Hey
I
Arnold.
watched Rugrats.
Yeah, you did watch all the kids were crazy about Rugrats. So yeah. I thought Rugrats was very risque. I was
Really?
Oh.
yeah,
Yeah,
I
that
was
is
sit
true. One time they said fuzzy dingling bars. Now, what the hell was the kids fuzzy ding? The grandfather said that. The grandfather was like, "Where are my fuzzy dingling bars?" And I'm like, "Now, come on, now. Just because you
you
put
know
fuzzy before doesn't stop it from being a dingling."
yeah, I would sit there and I would watch Rugrats with you guys, and I just thought the little girl was just doing and saying a lot. And
Angelica.
Oh, Angelica.
yes. I
Yeah,
thought
Angelica
she
was
was
bad
doing
And
as hell.
Susie. And I loved Angelica and Susie.
yeah.
They were such a dynamic duo, even they were at odds a little.
Yeah. So yeah, that was, and then with okay, you got to help me with the time frame because like again, this isn't my generation. But what about SpongeBob? Would that is that the 90s or
It's
no?
not. I don't know if it came out in the 90s, but I think it still would be considered kind of one of the. We can do 90s to early 2000s, but mostly just the cartoons. Now, see, SpongeBob for me, I did not love SpongeBob because I thought it was stupid. And this is no disrespect to all the
Mm.
SpongeBob lovers, but I don't think I could get into the humor of it because it was
Right.
like so like bringing around town and then stop and twist, and it was just so like like I don't know. I just felt like I couldn't follow the storyline.
It
Do you
was a lot
understand?
of adult. They had a lot of adult humor hidden in that one too.
Mm-hmm.
They did.
Really?
Oh yeah, they had a lot of adult humor hidden in that. And I used to, your uncles used to watch it, and I would sit there and watch these grown men, watching SpongeBob, and they were like, "Oh, it's a lot of jokes in here that the kids aren't getting." I know Ronald used to watch it. Your uncle Ronald used to watch it all the time, and he'd be sitting there laughing,
Really?
like this grown ass man sitting here laughing at a sponge.
That is so crazy. Yeah, SpongeBob came out in 99. Yeah, it's so crazy to imagine, like, damn, 99, just sitting thinking back at
Mm.
that time. Like, wow, I was so little, but I still remember so much. What was some of your favorite shows, Max?
Kiki, I was a Doug fan.
Come on, Doug.
Of course, Doug and Patty. I always was fond of
Banging on
Patty. I
my
liked Patty.
banjo,
Oh yes,
banging down the
Oh,
street
was it
lights.
was it Tofu? What was it? It was something with Tofu, Kiki.
Yeah,
It
his
was like
band.
yeah, right?
Yeah.
It was, health
I
conscious. It was
love Doug. I
delightful.
love Doug.
And you know what I loved? And I'm a little older than you, Key, but Muppet Babies. I always
Muppet
thought
Babies
the
I didn't get
Muppet
into.
Babies were so. Well, yeah, you were a little because we have a 5 year age
It's so
difference. I
random. I
think
can't
the
believe
Muppet Babies were so charming. It was the Muppets, but they were babies, and
it.
it was animated.
What about Hey Arnold? When did Hey Arnold come out?
That came out in 96.
wow, I can't believe Hey Arnold's been
Hey
around
Arnold, and I liked Hey
that
Arnold because you know
long.
what? Even though it was a cartoon, it was about kids. Like his stuff was real. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
the things that he was going through as
Mm.
a kid was like,
Yeah.
he's getting teased by the girl in school, or he doesn't know if he's going to make this. And, he's nervous about what's happening. Like it was so everyday life, and I'm pretty sure they were in New York because I remember them being on a stoop. Hey, stoop kid! They had a stoop kid.
Yeah, I think you're
Yeah,
right.
it was like very realistic, even though it was a cartoon. And I feel the same way about Recess. Y'all remember Recess?
I do.
Oh yeah, Recess was good.
Oh, or what about the Cowardly Lion? I mean, that's we're getting now in the 2000s, but you remember the
Yeah.
Cowardly? What was his man's name? Courage
Oh,
the Cowardly Dog. Y'all don't remember that show? Y'all
no,
went
I
No,
silent
I
don't.
on that.
remember Clifford. Was
What you
Clifford
mean?
the big red dog?
Clifford was the big red owl, but Courage the Cowardly Dog was Cartoon Network, and Cartoon Network was
Oh,
always a bit severe.
yes.
They had Dexter's Lab as well.
Oh, I like Dexter. He was manic.
Dexter was always trying to come up with some scheme, and it always
Yeah.
fell through.
Now there was a show that just got on my nerves that L'Oreal used to watch, and it was the Berenstein Bears because the
Oh.
I'm
I
like, what
don't
are you
remember the
saying?
Bernstein Bears. You know what I
Berenstein,
do remember though is I remember Franklin. Hey, this
yes,
Franklin.
I
Come
remember
Oh,
to
Franklin
my
was
Franklin.
house.
sweet.
Hey, this Franklin. I mean, Franklin had a good family. I always thought Franklin was black, even though he was a turtle. I did. I thought, Franklin's black.
Franklin
This
is
is
black,
this is a black
yes.
family. I just the black kids always did that in any animal show. These are black people. You know, we are like
Oh,
they don't draw black
and
people,
was
so the
Franklin the
animals are
tortoise?
us.
Was he the tortoise?
Yeah, he
He
was a
was the
tortoise.
tortoise, right?
I love Franklin.
Oh,
I always felt like Arthur and his family could have been black or Creole, something.
Yeah.
oh, very much so.
Loved
Yes.
Arthur. Loved Arthur. I feel like Arthur. It's so sad to me about Arthur, which I guess is the point of all of these that we're talking about. Is like I really wish. Obviously, this was the point of the PBS shows, but Arthur was a really smart show
It
that
was.
really taught
Mm.
kids. That
It
really
did.
taught kids. And like by the time my little brother and sister, who are Gen Z, they came around, Arthur voice done changed. It
Mm.
wasn't the same. And I
Right.
wish so badly that they could have been really impacted by the Arthur that I knew growing up because I love that show.
Yeah, no, that was a really, really good show. I remember watching that with you
PB and J
guys.
Otter as well. I don't know if you guys remember that one. PB and J Otter. That was definitely a little bit later into the 2000s, but it was about a otter.
Oh, who knew? Who
Why do they always do
knew?
the kid shows of the animals? You ever, like what? I mean, like Max and Ruby. I was playing that for Leo earlier. He's far too young, and no one judged me for showing him a TV show. But it was the only thing that could kind of quiet him down. We put on Max and Ruby, and he actually liked it.
Yeah.
Oh, I love
That's
Yeah.
that.
hilarious.
Yeah, just think, Kiki, what do you think? I mean, and he's still so young, but as Leo gets older, what do you think? I mean, as you get reintroduced to children's programming with him, what do you hope to see? Like kind of like the classic Arthur learnings, or
I mean, yeah.
what's your
I would
hopes?
want I would want it to be something that's I don't want to say educational, but yes, to some degree educational because a lot of these shows dealt with some heavy topics. Like I remember the Rugrats dealt with death quite early, and obviously we know a lot of the Disney movies do as well, from Bambi
Yeah.
to Lion King. Um, so I would want him to be able to kind of get walked into some important either social and personal topics or educational like learning topics. I mean, what about you, Mom? Were
Mm.
you hesitant ever letting me watch some of these shows? Because I know you said some of them were really mature. How did you balance what you gonna let me watch?
I mean, like I remember the first time we showed you Lion King,
Oh, that
and
was
this is
devastating.
when you were just getting into cartoons. Because prior to like when you were a little bitty girl, like 1, 2, 3 years old, 4 years old, you weren't having the cartoons. I would put the cartoons on, and you were like, before I could turn around, you would be behind me. So I couldn't interest you in any cartoon. But when you got about maybe 5 or 6, that's when the whole Disney thing exploded. That's when Beauty and the Beast, and Disney was just hitting us hard with all these blockbuster movie theater cartoons. And so we were excited to get you Lion King. And so we set you down with your sister in front of the couch. We got you guys popcorn and we turned the TV on and you were really watching Lion King. And I remember Larry and I going into our bedroom going, yes, we finally got something that she wants to watch. Well, it was probably about maybe 30 minutes, 25 minutes into this movie, and we heard something. It's like screaming. We were like, what the heck is going on? And we run out there, and Kiki, They killed Mufasa. She was really traumatized.
I was traumatized from that. I really was traumatized from that. But I do think I'm highly emotionally sensitive and empathetic and understanding things also because of that movie. Like it was very
Mm.
emotional for me, but obviously I was comforted after that. It wasn't like I watched Mufasa and I hollered and screamed and you guys were just like, "Oh well, bitch."
No,
You guys hugged me and everything.
no, we
You
talked.
know,
No, we did talk to you,
you know.
Good
Yeah,
luck.
we
oh, someone died. Oops. You
no,
guys
Oops.
were
no, we
kind to
did talk to
me.
you. But to answer your question, I do not believe, and this has been a point of contention with my husband and I. Not anymore, because
Come on,
all of our
contention.
kids, yeah, all of our children are adults, and you guys are, reasonably sane, I guess. But but I just never believed in censorship for my kids. I just felt like
Yeah.
they could watch it and then I can explain it to them.
I
But
Mm.
mean,
he did. My husband didn't like it, and we
I mean,
had
there were
heated
limits. It wasn't like you were sitting there letting us watch soft porn.
or
So you
sex.
definitely
No,
had, yeah, you
yeah,
definitely
my
had
no
some
no no
censorship.
no.
But
My limits was sex and overt violence against women. Anything that was violent against women or violence or sex, no. But when it came to things that were a little controversy, I let you watch it.
yeah, especially with the cursing and things like that. I remember Dad hated that you let me watch Romeo Must Die or The
Mm.
Matrix when we would go to the movies and see some of that stuff. But you would explain it. I'll never forget when Sharon explained to me Genuine's "My Pony" song. That was a tough one. She said, "Do you
Wait,
know what you're singing?" I'm like, "Yeah, Genuine. You know, do you know what they're talking about?" No, no, they're talking about simulating sex. I'm like, Sharon, why are you telling me this at 7? This is too deep. This is too much. If you're gonna be singing it, you need to know what you're talking about.
That's right.
That's not nothing for kids,
Oh, I
right?
love
She
that.
did too much though. That was extra. We had to stop
That's
watching
right.
more together as well because she had me looking things up in the dictionary that I didn't want to know.
Well, I really didn't know. Uh, no one gets a handbook to be a parent. I had my first child
Mm-mm.
at 21 years old. No one came to me and told me, "Oh, this is how you be a parent. You just do the best that you can." But it's when they become older that you realize, okay, I wasn't so bad on that because just some of the conversations that Keke has and some of her knowledge about things, and she investigates things. I realized that I was the start of that. I was like, okay, she's smart. She's investigating. She's not just taking at face value everything someone says. And
Mm.
Kiki can have an intelligent conversation. In fact, all of my children can have intelligent conversations about any topic, and they're not afraid to go, I don't understand. I don't know what that is. Let me research that. And I do know that they probably did get that from me.
Well, I mean, you make me think about right now, like just again, Rugrats. I mean, it was actually quite a feminist show because I mean, Angelica's mom was the
Oh.
breadwinner. She was a career woman. She was in so many ways similar to you of just being, she was always like, let me tell you, let me get into it. And I mean, it's so interesting to me that they had a character like that in 1991.
Yeah.
Phil and Leo's mom, Betty, she wore a sweater with the female sign on it. I mean, do you think
Yes.
Rugrats gets enough credit for how forward thinking of a show it was?
I don't
No.
think it gets enough
Mm.
credit for having that type of foresight, but I do think it was a huge commercial success.
Sometimes I feel like we don't realize that that's why. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because it told stories that really resonated with people and were more under the surface than ever. And just those subliminal messages are so important too. Like you said, Kiki, I love that. That's what you took from that, and probably a lot of people did, because that's how I felt. Was it Charlotte? And she was always on the phone. She was always on the cell phone, which I always thought was glamorous. I wanted a cell
Yeah, I
phone
thought it
like
was
that, but I
very
couldn't afford
glamorous. I mean, she also was not watching Angelica's ass enough. So that was another thing. She had some
Now
flaws,
it.
didn't they deal with, and then I remember an episode that I thought was interesting. I hope this is the right show. Didn't they deal with like being Jewish and a
Yes,
bat
they did.
mitzvah? Didn't they talk a
Yep,
lot about religion?
they
Yeah.
sure
Yes.
did.
Yeah, no, he was because no, Tommy was Jewish because
Yep.
the grandfather, the dad of the two sons, who was Tommy's dad, was Jewish. And I mean, I think all of that is so important because it
So
opens people's
important.
minds up that there's so many other ways of religion
And
and
culture.
living
Yeah, I
and
thought that
culture.
was so
Yes.
brilliant and so smart, and I was happy that my kids were sitting in front of the TV learning about another culture.
Yep.
So that
Mm,
when Proud Family came,
Come on,
years
Proud
later,
Family.
when Proud
yep.
Family came years later and started talking about Kwanzaa,
Right.
I was like, okay, this is some Rugrats stuff here. And they're using these cartoons as a way to introduce culture and to say, look, it's okay. Your culture is okay. My culture is okay. Let's learn about them. So I do think that
Yes.
Rugrats was on the forefront of that.
Um, okay. Last question. What lesson do you remember learning from an early 90s show? I mean, I learned a lot of lessons. I always felt really seen in the Proud Family show. And I remember there was a really good episode. I don't remember all the ins and outs and all the details of what happened, but her and her best friend Penny Proud and her best friend Dejanay got into a fight somehow, and then they, end up somehow coming back together. And I remember that, they looked at each other and Penny said, "Are we still cool?" And Dejanay said, "Cool like the other side of the pillow." And I don't know, I just always felt like, I just love the idea that you and your friend can be at odds and you guys can have the worst week or the worst weekend and still find your way back to being cool again.
Yeah.
I really
Mm.
just like the idea of, I guess, like forgiving somebody and finding a way to understand. Like I like the idea of like everything doesn't have to end. That you can still come back again. So I guess I learned about friendship.
Yeah, I think Hey Arnold had a lot of moments like that too. A lot of teaching moments that didn't feel like, preachy moments and stuff like that.
And Sharon, to piggyback off yours, I remember there was a Rugrats movie that was when Tommy had a baby brother, and I can remember I have two sisters and one is much younger, and I can remember how much it spoke to me, thinking, it's okay that your younger sibling annoys you, but you can still love, it's not a threat to you. I remember that picking that up real because I was probably 9 or 10 and thinking, oh, this new baby is not for me, and
Howling.
it's throwing off the groove. It's throwing
Yeah.
off the entire
You,
groove
you know,
here.
yeah.
But just but I remember that very much from the Rugrats movie, being like, okay, maybe she's cool. Maybe it is okay. She's
That's
cool.
awesome
Hmm.
that the movie made you feel okay about that. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, okay, it's fine. We can all exist here.
That's hilarious. Well, as always, I love chatting and hearing all you guys have to say, but I have to get to my conversation with Craig and hear all about these masterpieces we know and love. Baby, this is Keke. All right, you guys. So, in keeping with the topic of today, you are in for a treat because while we can talk about how much we love our childhood shows forever, I thought we should talk to someone who is responsible for some of the shows we know and love. I'm so excited to be sitting here with Craig Bartlett. He's the creator of Hey Arnold, and he has worked on shows like Rugrats, Johnny Bravo, Sesame Street, and Pee Wee's Playhouse. Welcome to the show, Craig.
Hi, Keke. It's nice to be here.
It's good to talk to you. I mean, there's so much I want to get into in terms of the historic shows you've done. But as always, I'm really curious about how everyone gets their start in their particular field. So I'm curious, were you always a creator, a storyteller, a writer, or even into animation?
Yeah, I was always into animation. I grew up watching, I think I got all my ideas about comic timing from like Bugs Bunny cartoons. I watched the
Wow.
Warner cartoons my entire childhood. And also I got to give it up for Charlie Brown, the Charlie Brown Christmas, that very first special that came on.
Iconic.
When I saw that, I was like the perfect age. I was like Charlie Brown age. And I loved it because it was about it's Christmas and you're sad. And I couldn't believe how cool that was. That was very different in tone from the, fast paced, funny, Bugs Bunny stuff. And so I was like, oh, cartoons can also be jazzy and kind of blue. And you remember, as soon as you saw it, the tiny little Charlie Brown and Linus walking in the snow. I mean, I've been trying to cop that look the rest of my career. And when we set out to make Hey Arnold, Jim Lang and I, Jim's our composer. I said let's do a vibe that's more modern than that, like for the '90s.
When you mentioned the nuance of Charlie Brown, I think that was what made Hey Arnold stand out so much, was you really got a chance to feel like the kids were people with real emotions. They were down. Helga was caught up in this thing. She loved Hey Arnold, deep down, but when she went out there, she had to be, a jerk to him, or a football head. He was, sometimes getting bullied, and he was, they seemed like, you know, they were kids, but they had their own melodramas. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? They had things that I think as a viewer, as a kid, made you feel like you were allowed to have some type of independent thought and feelings,
Yeah.
even if they weren't always happy.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I wanted it to be about emotions more than anything else. And I knew too that kind of gag stuff, funny cartoons were going to be, that was covered. All cartoons,
Yeah,
you can't
sure.
sell a cartoon to the network unless you promise them it's going to be funny. And so I made the same promise, but I'm like, really, Stealth? It's going to be about feelings and emotions,
Yeah.
because I knew kids would love it. I just remembered what it was like for me as a kid. And I thought, if we can, and as soon as I saw the early episodes that came back that were about being, bummed out, like, do you remember one called Field Trip? Arnold has to rescue the giant turtle from the aquarium. That's got
Okay, yeah.
a big chunk in the middle where he just goes to his room and puts on some sad music and bums out, So
Yes.
when I saw that come back, I'm like, oh, this can be our thing. This can be what we do to make our show different from everybody else.
So when you started out, working in children's television, you started over at PBS, or was Nickelodeon first?
Yeah, let's see. I made those little claymation Sesame Street shorts even before Nickelodeon, but just before. That was about 1990 when I got my first. I made a couple of little Arnold things for Sesame Street, and then I was already at Klasky Chupo, and I worked on the first season of Rugrats as a story editor and a director, and that introduced me to all those people. So a couple years later, I could sell them Hey Arnold. But it was great. I learned how to write screenplays and stuff. On the job, I learned how to write screenplays and do storyboards and stuff. Because that's kind of the way it was, man. The early 90s and Nickelodeon, it was really the Wild West. We all felt like a bunch of kids getting our first shot at cartoon making. And there really weren't any old hands who were like, listen, this is how it goes. We were making it up and we knew it.
Well, I think that's the big difference between like Disney and Nickelodeon. Like with Disney, I feel like obviously, they have a long history, since Mickey Mouse, of their animations and the Imagineers, etc. But Nickelodeon, for me, I mean, everything in my knowledge was so from the ground up. And I think that's why it was so innovative. Like it was in such a particular time.
Yeah.
Why did you decide to do Hey Arnold and name it Hey Arnold? Like, what was your mission statement for the show? I mean, obviously you told me a little bit about Charlie Brown and giving them something modern.
Yeah.
But why the name and why those kids?
It's so funny. That's such a great question. I came to LA. I actually came to LA to do Pee-wee's Playhouse. I made do you remember the Penny cartoons on Pee-wee? She was the little clay girl.
The Penny cartoons I don't remember, but I do obviously remember Pee-wee.
Yeah. Well, they brought me down because there was all those weird little, kind of animated segments that would kind of pop on the show. And they moved the show from New York to LA, and they had to get a new crew. And I had sent my resume. I thought Pee-wee was such a cool show. I made a reel of my clay animation that I was doing up in Portland. And they hired me to work on Penny. And so that was, my introduction. And then as soon as I got here to work on Penny, it's just a few weeks work and you're done. And so I'm sitting here in LA now, unemployed. And I thought I should make my own cartoon. And I thought the first thing would be to create my own character. So Arnold was just, me trying to make a kid character that was, I wanted it to be how it felt to be a kid. So I made those very first shorts where he was clay. Then I showed that to Nickelodeon after I'd met all those people and worked on Rugrats with them. And they're like, this is cool. Could it be, 2D? Could it be drawn? I said, oh yeah, here's some comics I've done. And I showed them some Arnold comics. And it was still really just the kernel of an idea. Like his whole kind of urban world hadn't even been created yet. It was just, I had a design for him with that weird football head, which was influenced by my claymation days. He was originally in clay. And then I showed them that, and we adapted it into all the kind of deep details, because when you go to series, you get to do that.
Yeah, and I'm interested as a creative. I mean, how much of that was your early investment? Because I'm sure people listening, or sometimes people wonder, like, how do you get yourself in that door? Or how do you take that next step for something that's yours? How much did you actually have to invest early on your idea before you were going to get some support from the
It's
network?
so cool, once they like the idea, like the exec at Nickelodeon saw like one particular drawing. It was like the punchline of one of the comics, and it was Arnold screaming. And she laughed and laughed and
Right.
said, I want this, come back in. And I was actually in there with a bunch of other friends of mine, and we were all trying to pitch stuff. And she didn't want any of our group ideas, but she saw that my Arnold comics and was like, why don't you come back and we'll talk about this Arnold guy? And that was all we had, was like, she liked this idea of this kid that could be, it could be in these kind of extreme situations. And so then I came in and pitched that whole, like, Arnold lives in a old boarding house under a freeway overpass with his grandma and grandpa and a bunch of like weird
Mm-hmm.
eccentric boarders. And the pitch was like, Arnold's super chill. He's like a little Buddha. He's gonna sit there all kind of calm, and he'll be the calm center, and all the characters around him will be crazy. And that was the pitch. And then they go, okay, make a pilot. And then in the pilot, the neighborhood was created. His best friend Gerald was created. His,
Love Gerald.
bullies Harold and Helga. And then the idea, even in the pilot, Helga's acts like she hates him, but secretly she loves him. So you try in your pilot to get all that stuff in there. And then if they dig the pilot, they test it and everything. If they dig the pilot, then it's like, okay, we'll put up the, 10 million to order 20 half hours. And then they really put the
Man.
money up, and once they do that, then you're kind of empowered to do that real world building. And thank God for networks putting up that dough. I didn't have
Man, I mean, if only, I'm curious, do you think that they put up that dough the way they did back in the day? Because I'm not sure they do.
No, I agree. Things have changed. I've been working as an animator. It's like 40 years now, and I've watched the business change completely, like 3 or 4 times. And we're in another, trough now, because
Absolutely.
once Netflix kind of stumbled, then all the other studios kind of went like, whoops, we've been spending too much. Let's kind of chill out. So thank God I tried to get Arnold going in the 90s. The 90s were exploding. Nickelodeon making the Nicktoons.
So
That was
true.
like, when they put the Nicktoons out, there was nothing like it. Remember when Rugrats, Ren and Stimpy, and Doug came out? Everyone was like, oh my God.
I mean, it was huge.
Yeah.
Doug is one of my all-time favorites. I mean, it was so good. Doug funny. Why would that be his name?
Yeah.
His drawing.
Yeah.
Again, it all had that depth that we're talking about. Like, I hated cartoons for a long time as a kid. Like, because the only ones I would see were like in the style that you're originally talking about, like the SpongeBob style or the Tom and Jerry style, where they're just kind of like boing, yoing, yoing.
Yeah.
And I didn't like that as a kid. When I first saw Rugrats,
Yeah.
when I saw Hey Arnold, when I saw Recess, or when I saw Doug, those were cartoons that I could get into because I felt like they had something to say. They made me feel like I wasn't being talked down to. I hated being treated like a little kid, as crazy as that is, even as a kid.
I'm really glad to hear that. That's exactly what we were trying to do,
I wonder what has changed. What
styles. It's like, I definitely feel like things as they, I mean, it's amazing that a corporation as big as Nickelodeon could be that kind of bold and make things that were so kind of different. And I just think it was because their leadership then, Geraldine Laybourne was the president of Nickelodeon, and she had a mission. She was like, I don't want to do cartoons that are based on toys. I don't want to do G.I. Joe and My Little Pony, turning a toy into a cartoon show that's going to sell more toys. I want these things to be like something no one's ever seen before. And when that's coming from the top, that trickles down to all of us. And we go, I just remember getting, I remember when I was working on the first couple shows, and Geraldine came out from New York to have lunch with us. And I showed her a couple of, key early Helga episodes. And we went to lunch, and she said at lunch, she said, I was Helga. and I told her, well, it's really good to hear, because this is what I'm trying to do. And she said, that's exactly right. You do it. And so I knew my boss was
Wow.
100% behind me, making this pretty crazy show. Helga, in her kind of stalking of Arnold, and she builds that bubblegum shrine in her closet, and
Oh my gosh, it was so
she's kind of
good.
worshiping
She was
him in this
crazy as
really
hell.
kind of weird way. Nowadays, if I feel like if I pitched that today, people would be like, "Hey, come on, you can't do that."
Yeah, they maybe would overthink it. They maybe would overthink it and take things too literal. And we need to, she's got to be empowered and he's got to be smarter, and we can't have all this bullying or, whatever it is. But I do think the adversities that we saw these cartoon characters going through, I really do think that they're impactful to kids' development because we learn how to deal with adversity. We learn that. Oh wow, and it's comedy at the same time.
Yeah, we
Did
just
any
make
of these
sure it's funny.
characters
Like
exactly? Because
always.
if it's not funny, then it's just
Yeah, then
sad.
they're not gonna be happy. You got to feel like you're
Right.
making something
It's like where the
kids
jokes
laugh.
at.
Yeah.
you you were saying that Geraldine felt like she was Helga when you were creating these characters. Were any of them you or people that you knew?
Yeah, I mean, it's so funny, like you base it on your childhood, and yet I didn't grow up in a
Yes.
boarding house with my grandparents. I lived in a pretty suburban house in Seattle with my mom and dad and three sisters. So it's not like I was Arnold, but I would totally use that. I would say, look, Arnold's based on me. And so then when I'd have a story that the execs were like, I don't know, that seems too intense or whatever, I'd go, hey, that's how it happened to me. And then they go, oh, okay. And I was usually kind of bullshitting. you know, I was usually kind
Hilarious.
of, but I definitely used the fact that I identified with Arnold and he was coming from, what it felt like for me to be a kid, because that's just really helpful. It helps you in your in your fights with the network.
Yeah.
And then, the rest of them, they're very, very loosely based on people I knew. Like there was no Helga. Unfortunately, I love Helga. I wish that there was a real one because
Right.
you put so much into these characters that you kind of feel like they become kind of more real than your neighbors. And I got to give credit to Francesca Smith, the genius kid who
Mm-hmm.
voiced her.
So you guys had actual kids on
Yeah,
yours, because I
that's
know
right.
some people, they're
We
adults.
did. We cast real kids, and I remember, they were like, really, they're going to grow up, their voices are going to change. It sounds like a problem. And I'd come off of Rugrats where adults play those kids, but I said, no, I
Yep.
want that. I want that authenticity. I want it to be emotionally authentic. I want you to feel. I want kids to watch it and go, hey, those are real kids. And when we were casting, Franny came in and auditioned for Helga, blew everybody away. And also, Jameel Smith came in and played Gerald, and he also blew everybody away. I can remember my boss going, well, we found our Gerald as soon as he was done.
It was also really good to see Gerald. I mean, I know for me growing up, anytime they had a black character, he was always green or purple or just random.
Right.
You know what I
Like
mean? Like,
Scooter on Doug.
he wasn't you know what I mean? He wasn't a real. It was like, okay, we know that's the black dude. So I love that Gerald was a real little black kid. You know what I mean? It was
Yeah.
really good to see him on television. It was as a cartoon. You know what I mean? We were fighting to get to see him in live action, so to get it as a cartoon.
Yeah, I think you're right. Every little step of the way, it makes it easier for the next show. And so, yeah, I agree.
For sure.
We knew I
Yeah.
wanted Gerald to be this extra cool best friend that everybody would think was the coolest best friend ever. And I knew I wanted to cast a black kid. And then of course we got to cast the rest of his family.
Did you know that it was iconic at the time? Obviously, you knew it was successful because they kept doing it, and it was like, this is a successful show. But did you know it was gonna be like one of the ones that is like, yeah, Hey Arnold? Did you think that?
No, I didn't even dare to hope that. I remember at the time it was like all that really mattered was that it was hitting, and that meant another order of 20 and another order of 20. And for 5 years, they just ordered 20
Oh my
on the beginning of
goodness.
the year, and we had 100. Nickelodeon liked what we were doing, and we had a great relationship with them. Actually, people like to think
Yeah.
that the network is stupid and they give dumb notes and you got to fight them. But I actually felt like once I showed them that I was responsible and I could get it done and that they would work, then they gave me a ton of rope, man. They said, you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
We knew it was good, but we didn't know it was going to be loved like this. This is really cool now. It's more fun now than
Yeah.
ever, really.
I like what you said about the networks. I do think networks can be difficult, but really the difficulty comes from what it would be in any relationship. I got to get to know you. I got to know how you work. Are you going to waste the money or are you going to properly invest it? And I think when you have that kind of objective attitude going into that kind of relationship,
Mhm.
you don't take everything personally.
Yeah.
So you just deliver what you got to deliver and get what you want to get done. And then everybody is aware of each other. And it should be easy from that point.
Yeah, that's
forward.
exactly right. That's how I do it too. I feel like
Yeah.
they're putting up that money, man. They're putting 10 million on the
Yeah.
line again and again, and so they deserve to have those concerns. They don't want
Yes.
they don't want you to blow it or make something that isn't what you promised you were going to make. So it's a real relationship based on being someone they can count on, and that's been my whole career. Like, if I say I'm going to do it, I better do it.
Period. You also mentioned something that was also interesting to me. I wanted to kind of touch back on it, where you were talking about, the fact that you guys did over 100 episodes on Hey Arnold. That not only is success in the moment, but it can be success afterwards in the world of residuals and just having something that could be on television for a long time.
Yeah.
But obviously now we're in a different time. Does what's happening with the WGA and residuals, does that affect animation as well?
Yeah,
In the same way?
when you said that, I immediately thought of the strike and the SAG strike. This is really scary. Putting people out of work and
It's super
stopping
scary.
productions is never cool. It's never fun. But if we don't stand up for what we deserve, we won't get it. This whole AI thing is insane. It's insane.
Yeah, so what is the AI thing? Because from my understanding, they want AIs to start writing scripts.
Can you believe
Wrong
it?
or right.
And it's so funny that it's like the way that they're treating AI online, like on Instagram or something. They'll show like here's a beer commercial that we had AI do, and it's ridiculous, right? I actually think that's like they're kind of faking us on that, because you can show that AI can't do it, and at the same time, it must be pretty good if big studios are literally trying to have AI write scripts, like feeding.
I think it's pretty good.
Yeah, feeding every script ever written into AI and going, hey, that's pretty good, and we can just have the writers do punch up or something. That would be terrible. So it's like people that create
He said
original
that would be
content.
terrible.
We have to fight the power, and we can't let machines do our creativity.
And I even heard that people were saying that AI, they'll have somebody call you on the phone to get your voice and then use your voice as AI. And they can call you and say, hey, I got your kids for ransom or whatever. I had to call my family. I say, hey, look, if somebody calls you with my voice from another number, ask me some type of underground ass question so we can make sure. You know what I mean? Because if the AI steal my voice, hell, they could run amok.
No kidding.
So
and your voice is your voice.
Yeah,
So,
it's my likeness.
yeah, you don't want AI to replace you. So it's anyway, that's on the table right now, and the studios are not being cool, and that's why there's a strike, and we want to make sure we still get residuals too. The stuff I did in the '90s, I'm still getting mailbox money from Hey Arnold and participating in the profit that they make from rerunning Hey Arnold. And thank God I had a good lawyer who made a good deal, and that the unions have been there to make sure that those things were in place. That makes all the difference for us to have a successful career and not just be serving. So the idea is we create stuff so that later it'll pay me when I'm an old guy.
Baby, this is Keke Palmer, yeah.
That's the truth 100%, especially when you talk about age. We all get older. We all cannot work the way we worked when we was 20, 12, 13, 14, and whatever. You know what I mean? There comes a time where, hell, you should be able to sit down for a damn minute. And that is true. Like, if you were blessed enough to do a show as successful as Hey Arnold or Grey's Anatomy or ER or whatever you have it that's going on and on and on, that is what you deserve. So,
Yeah.
we're all standing together. But I was just so curious when you mentioned that. I'm like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
how are we going to get through that?
It is true.
Now, obviously, you're talking about when you were in the 90s and all the, the different kinds of personalities that were at the companies and how they let you take chances, and obviously just the whole renaissance of that era of cartoons. Well, in the 2000s or in the 2010s, where were you then? What was your journey transitioning out of that era? And Hey Arnold, what did it look like for you and your creativity?
Thanks for asking that question, Keke, because it's a part of my career that people kind of don't. I mean, here how it was for me at the end of the 90s, about 2000, there was another recession. The 90s were over, and everybody kind of had a hangover for a couple years into the 2000s where they tried, like, I don't know, just internet was getting going, but these kind of like internet companies that they were trying were bombing, and they kind of slow for a while. And I remember going, hey, wait, I thought after giving you guys 100 half hours in a movie, anything I wanted to do next, you'd be like, cool, like pitch us what you're doing next and we'll make it. And it wasn't that way at all. I didn't have an idea for them that they wanted. And I went over to Cartoon Network and I tried to, I developed a show there, but it didn't get picked up for series. And after about 2 or 3 years with Cartoon Network, I'm like, this isn't hitting. They don't particularly dig what I'm doing. And then I was like, crap, I can't believe it. I'm just, there's nothing going on. And it took me until, I want to say about 2006. So really there was a pretty dry spell of about 5 years. In 2006, I got Dinosaur Train going with PBS. And it was because I knew Linda Szymanski had been an exec at Nick. So, there were definitely some slow parts where I worked on screenplays and I pitched stuff and I story edited for people, but I couldn't get another show going for a really long time. And I think people expect that once you hit, it's going to be, gold forever.
They do think that.
And it isn't true. People, are so funny that way. I can't tell you how many times I'd meet with people to pitch and they're like, oh, I'm a big fan of your work. And then you pitch your idea and they're like, nah.
Oh yeah, I've been there too.
Yeah.
It's such a big part of our industry that people do not talk about, especially like you're saying, when you're someone that has reached, obvious or great success, they just think that that's just it. You know what I mean? It's like, you could be famous. That doesn't mean you're getting paid and you're getting great jobs. Like it just, that's like you just got fame from that one thing or you got popularized from that one thing.
Yeah.
And you still got to try to figure out how to keep that train going.
Yeah. And you can't just do forever. I can't do forever Hey Arnold, even though, I think it's justifiably, it's the thing that people know best. And the people who grew up on it are really, deeply into it. I think it affected people more deeply than any other thing I've done. But it doesn't mean Nick's sitting there going, okay, let's make episode 600 of Hey Arnold. They aren't. At this moment, they don't need any more. They've got that big stack of them that they can show on Hulu or Paramount Plus or whatever.
Come on, Hulu.
God bless them. I'm glad they're doing it. But it doesn't mean, hey, let's do, I pitched them everything, Keke. I pitched them a Gerald spinoff, in fact.
You pitched Nickelodeon a Gerald spinoff?
Yeah. I mean, there was a point a couple years ago where it was like everyone was going to do like family co-viewing movies. I'm like, great, man. I want to do, how about the first one can be Hey Arnold, but it's like Gerald has an urban adventure that he wants to do that's like an urban legend, that's like feature length. And I, just the other day I was like, I stumbled on that on my computer. I'm like, hey man, that'd be a good story. but you know
what? That would be excellent. And the thing is like, I feel like, I wonder if in the year of 2023, would that be more like a go than it was in the 90s?
Yeah.
That I feel like, sometimes, and this is honestly society, how times can be, like people maybe, or the networks maybe wasn't ready for Gerald. But now the networks will be begging for Gerald's show,
Yeah.
which is just so crazy how the world goes.
Yeah, you're right. Things come in and out totally. You know, your idea. That's why I tell people never throw anything away either. Like you might have a great idea, save that in a folder because 5 years from now that door might open and there you go. So that I never give
I mean,
up on
because
my ideas.
Craig, that would work as an animation or a live action.
Oh, I know. Actually, I heard this is really funny.
You know?
I heard about, let's see, the person who's currently running Nickelodeon called me in January, a year and a half ago, and said, "Hey, if Trevor Noah wanted to do something with Gerald, would you be into that?" I'm like, "Yeah, I love Trevor Noah." And then I don't know what happened. Things changed for him. He kind of he had a lot to do. He had a lot on his plate. So I always am like, "Hey man, one of these days I'll hook up with somebody who's got because sometimes you have to do that too. You have to take a
But
live
this is
action
what I'm
personality and
saying.
you kind of put together a package. And so I'm always
And
thinking that'll happen one of these days.
This is the thing. First of all, this is just insane tea. Like, I just want you to know that, like, that's the thing when you do something so iconic that generations after generations people are still touched by it.
Yeah.
It only speaks to the truth of that because you know what? Trevor Noah was a black kid growing up watching and we related to Gerald.
Yeah.
We loved that we had somebody in a show that we were like, oh yeah, oh that Gerald, I'm Gerald. You know what I mean? Or yeah, So it's like those years later, he like, yo, whatever happened to Gerald?
Right.
What's Gerald's storyline?
It's so funny.
How can we get more?
Yeah.
That's so cool.
When Ramsey told me that he was interested, I immediately went and got his new book, Born a Crime. Have you read that?
I haven't read it.
It's brilliant. It's such a great first book. And it talks about growing up really scrappy in South Africa. It's incredibly good.
Wow.
And he's a funny guy anyway.
I love Trevor.
I love the book. And I was like, dude, this guy was sitting in South Africa watching Hey Arnold. I'm incredibly proud of that. I can't believe what could be better than that. That little Trevor.
Nothing.
Little Trevor thought Hey Arnold was cool. Well, okay, job well done.
Yes. Well, Craig, you are amazing. We all love what you've done and everything you've contributed creatively. And I can't wait to, either see a Gerald spinoff or even just more of the animated works that you do because obviously it comes from a really true place. So I'm so glad you came on the show and hung out with me.
Well, thank you so much, Keke. It was great to talk to you. I'm a fan. Why didn't Nope win Best Picture?
Now that's what I'm talking about. Yes. You better say that.
But yeah, it's great to meet you, and thanks for having me on.
Thank you, Craig. That was an insightful conversation. Anyone else feeling super nostalgic right now? Today, we're going to end the show with a new segment called Keke's Favorite Things. And since today we're talking about all the old shows I love, I wanted to give you guys a glimpse into some of the new things I've been loving right now. Now, if you try any of the things I recommend, let me know on Instagram, okay? Here we go. My favorite show that I cannot stop watching is The Bernie Mac Show. And the reason why is because I love sitcoms. Now, Bernie Mac Show is not a multicam sitcom, which is usually what I spend my nights watching. It's a single cam, one of the ones that got most popular, I think, in that single cam sitcom era. But it's such a good show because it has such a wholesome yet mature feel to it. And obviously, Bernie Mac's not with us anymore, and his style of comedy is one that I just desperately miss. And I feel like when the show was on, I didn't actually watch it. But now, I'm just so happy because I'm getting to watch, it's about over 5 seasons, I think. I just get to enjoy Bernie again. I get to see all those amazing, talented kids, especially Jeremy Suarez, who's so funny on the show. But it's just a great show with a lot of great messages, especially about raising kids and having a family and being an entertainer, which I can all relate to. Now, the second question is the album that I have on repeat, which is dun 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 dun, none. Honey, I don't have any albums on repeat because no album has grasped me. But you know what? I lied. I just remember right now. I don't have it on repeat currently right now, but I had it on repeat for a while, which is the Beyonce Renaissance album, honey. That album had me together. You know how hard it is to listen to an album today? She put her back into that. Loved that album. But now that I'm died out on the album, I definitely need to go to that concert. Tickets are expensive though. Anyway, I have been listening to a couple of like different songs here and there. Like I was, repeating Search and Rescue by Drake, that one song What It Is by Dolce. I've also been listening to Kalila's old project, oh my gosh, Let Me Know. That's the track that I've been having on repeat. Just a couple of little things here and there. That little new, Uzi song, So I've been listening to a couple of different songs. But the last album that had me shook up was Renaissance by Beyonce. Okay. The one thing that is currently inspiring the most is dun, 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 my son. My son really inspires me so much. Just looking at him gives me a burst of energy and tells me that I can do anything, be anything. It makes me just want to be fabulous, like just the way he smiles and just the joy that he's brought into my life is just giving me such a new zhuzh, honey. And I just want to show up in the greatest and most fiercest way. The product that I cannot live without right now is actually makeup. I've gotten back into a full beat, giving the kids what they're looking for and wanting and needing. So, I've been getting back into makeup, getting back into some of my old tricks, learning some new ones. So I've been having some fun with that. And then lastly, the thing that gets me out of bed, and this might be redundant, but also not, is my family. I'm really just grateful for my family. They give me so much support and love, encouragement. And they're just such amazing people. So they make me feel like I have something to live for. And that is that. That's a wrap. Always fun spending time with you guys. More next week. But until then, it's your girl.
Baby,